So I'm serving on the panel with Kathy Northington, and she's kind of talking about different workplaces throughout the state of Mississippi. And one of the things she's going to ask me about is our organization has an open work environment. So we don't have any offices. It's very open. So kind of working through different generations in an open work environment. So she's going to ask me some questions about that and how that works with working with different people that have been with the organization from 30 years all the way down to 7 months, and how they interact and work together. And the open work environment really helps with that, because it's hard to hide, and it's, if you just kind of sit there, you have to be able to tell your message and be able to step up and kind of be a part of the team. So it kind of forces that team atmosphere. So it's a little bit different work environment. So she's going to discuss that with us today.
I have 3 kids, and my youngest said, "Mom, I'm moving out of state, and her college choices are based on towns that have a Chipotle." And I said, okay. So I'm thinking, do I calculate the out-of-state fees, or do I look into a franchise, bringing a Chipotle here so we can keep people here? So if there's anyone that's interested in having a franchise with Chipotle, let me know, because I think it'll help me. We talked about that, and I think we were talking about image, and you put that in your email. And another disclaimer, my email address is on the bottom of this panel list, and Brent said that he emailed me, and that leads to being on a panel. That's not true. You can email me your comments, but that does not mean I'm going to put you on the panel. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to put what you say on the website, but I want to read it. I want to listen to what you have to say, and I will take it back to my board. So if you look at that, please send me an email and tell us your thoughts. If you have someone that have moved out of the state and want to move back, or you have someone that's saying, "Hey, I'm moving out of state," email me and tell me why. What can we do to make you stay? Where are we missing this mark? I want to hear that, and I'll share it with our board members and with our members. But we talked about, MEC has been passionate about making this, our state, positive, a positive image across the board for everyone involved. And, if you want to talk about that, you can talk about, the things that we need to do to make this happen, and to make businesses say, "Hey, that's where I want to be." And I'm like you, I moved away, it wasn't by choice, but I lived in South Central Los Angeles for 15 years, and I'm back home. And people say, "Why did you come back?" I said, "This is home for me." And so, like you said, I wanted to be back here, and there's a lot of people that want to be back here. And so tell us the things that, you're saying image. What is it that we need to do to work on that and bring people back? You're in the insurance industry, and I'm pretty sure you work in communities. What are they saying? What would it take for them to come to Mississippi?
Well, that's a big question, and there are a lot of nuances to that answer. But one thing that I talked to Kathy about, and the MEC has a long-standing advocacy of changing the state flag. And while I certainly support that, I've been able to see through economic development, the state flag is killing us, guys. And I understand there are probably people in the room who support keeping the state flag, but there are a number of image issues that Mississippi carries that we certainly feel are not true. But yet when a prospective employer comes in from Washington or Vermont or California or whatever, and they see that flag flying in our state capitol, it just absolutely takes away everything we've done to repair that image. I hear legislators talking, and we have some here today, and they talk about a vote that we had on the state flag. Well, since we had that vote, 19 people boarded planes and flew them into buildings, and we've memorialized it 18 times since then. Point being, the world has changed, and we don't have to change who we are. We don't have to change our value system, but it just makes all the sense in the world to change that state flag. That's just one issue, but. And I do think that, it's like planting trees. They always say the best time to plant trees was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So I think, perhaps as a business community and an economic development association, we need to go from being an advocate to being a little bolder with our legislatures in terms of getting that done.
Thank you, Brent. We're going to flip the tables a little bit. I was just in Tupelo, and Judd was interviewing me. Judd, now I'm interviewing you.
You are.
I am. And we had a great time. We talked about a lot. And as I sat in the room watching everything that was going on in Tupelo, the growth, and we just had a great conversation. And when I walked out, he said, Kathy, do you want to see a tour of CDF? And I was like, sure. And so I walked around and I saw dartboards and I saw collaboration and I saw gumballs. I saw a board where you guys were doing a football poll, and you were at the very bottom, if I can understand.
Kathy, I didn't think you were going to mention that.
How did you do? How was it? Did you win?
I did bad.
You didn't? Okay, you did bad. But that's okay. So let's talk about that. We talk about the open floor plan. A lot of people are saying that's the way to go. But then when you do the research, they was like, that's not the way to go. But it's working for you because you're doing amazing things.
It is, Kathy, and I think it goes back to what he said about being intentional. And we were very intentional in how we designed the office where it would cause collaboration. We have a very diverse workforce as well throughout Tupelo and Lee County. And at CDF, we actually have folks that have been at CDF for 40 years, and we have a gentleman that's only been there 7 months. So you got a wide range of a knowledge base of folks that have been in our organization. And we consider ourselves business partners. And so I'm looking out right now. I see Jack Reed with Reed's. Your organization's won Business of the Year many times in the state of Mississippi. And I see Sean sitting there and with Toyota. And if we're going to be a business partner with folks like that, we got to have a team that's going to be on top notch and working together. And so what we did intentionally to do the open floor plan is to allow ideas to free flow, to be free flowing there. And so we have a gentleman in our organization that has been with CDF since 1979. He's a baby boomer. And then, as I mentioned, we have millennials, and we have those right next to each other where they can hear what's going on and hearing the ideas, and everybody's free to express their ideas. As Rob mentioned, he's one of ours that has been there for 7 months. I asked him, I said, what is it like working in an open office environment? What is that for you as a new employee at CDF? And he said, the one thing is I can't hide. And that's very important. So a lot of time, Rob, I'm sorry, he's probably hiding now. He actually left the room. He was scared I was going to mention him. But it is true because Rob's opinion is just as important as Greg's opinion, who's been there since 1979, because they're going to look at things differently. And so being in that open environment allows us to be the top of our game to work with organizations that I've mentioned already. And you mentioned our different ways of being in an open environment. We do fun things like a football poll and things like that, but it's more important when you know, a lot of the times when you're at work, you're with them more than you are your family a lot of times. I mean, you spend a lot more hours with your work family sometimes than your real family. So that open environment does cause a family organization, which I think allows us to become a better team, because usually a good team, they have the same goal. And when you work together in an open environment, it allows that to happen. And another neat thing is, too, it breaks down the hierarchy of, well, that's the manager over there, or that's the CEO over there, or that's the senior vice president. You don't think of titles like that because you're working in an open environment where you're all on the same playing field. So it allows you to be a good business partner and take those steps to cause collaboration.
And if for those that don't know a lot about what's going on in Tupelo, they're doing a lot. They were instrumental. CDF was instrumental in bringing Toyota here. I hear you have a great young professionals program, and then you're doing something amazing next week in Tupelo. Can you tell us about that and close
Yes,
it out?
and really that sort of birthed within an idea session we had. So we have a program, and a lot of different chambers of commerce across the state of Mississippi have leadership programs. We have one called the Jimmy Community Leadership Institute. Of course, Leadership Mississippi. Kathy, you've done a great job throughout the state with that. And we realized that that is a great program and has really helped grow our region. But we also realize that we just can't reach 20 to 30 people a year and try to grow up those leaders, that we needed to come up with an idea to be very intentional about growing our leaders. And so we, 3 years ago, through the just brainstorming and collaborating, we came up with the At Night Leadership Conference, and it's our third year to do that. And we do that in January because we feel like if you're going to spark leaders and spark change, what better way to do it when you're already quit going to the gym by January the 16th. You can work on this resolution on working on yourself in that way. So that's why we do that. So we have speakers coming in from across the country. And another neat thing that we do, we always bring in somebody local that we interview. So we'll either be an entrepreneur or a local business owner that we'll interview through that time. So it's a way to let companies bring folks together, work on their leadership, and work on themselves to invest to make a change within our region.
Thanks, Judd. So we're going to close out this panel, but a part of what I do at MEC is not only Chief Operating Officer, but I ran the State Leadership Program. And so when I leave, I always have to give them a challenge. So I have the mic, I have to give you a challenge. I think earlier this week, I had the privilege to speak to Leadership Madison County about diversity. And so when I was preparing for my speech, I asked a diverse group of leaders their favorite diversity quote, or what do you think about when you think about diversity? And I got a range of them. I got some that was short and quick. I got some that said, oh my goodness, I have so many, I can't pick my favorite. I had some to say, you know, I really hadn't thought about it, let me get back to you. And so in order to not make this a checkbox, in order to make this a standard, I challenge you to think about your favorite diversity quote. Think about what you think about when you hear diversity, and think about that quote, and does it reflect your work environment? Does it reflect your workforce? Does it reflect your home? Does it reflect your inner circle? If those don't match up, that's a quick assessment of what diversity looks like in your world, and it also shows you if diversity is a checkbox or is it the standard for your life. So if I can challenge you to do those things, ask yourself those questions. Think of that favorite quote. So if I see you, I'll say, what is your favorite diversity quote? And see how it works into your world.
The open work environment is no offices. It's more of a cubicle type based system. We actually don't have cubicles. It's more just stationary walls with no doors. So you can hear everything that goes on. So nobody has an office. Everybody's in one area, and so it forces collaboration. So that's what that is.
What kind of response have you had from your company?
Well, I mean, with anything, I mean, there's a lot of positives with it, but with anything, there's also can be some negatives, and it's just finding your own space. So we do offer some conference room areas where people can kind of get away and do that, but we've seen a very positive outcome because it's brought the team together, and it's allowed us to work on projects more effectively because everybody knows what's going on.
Early childhood is a big part of all of this. Is a big part of workforce. I mean, you got to give them a strong foundation to be successful when they get to school, so that they can really determine success in elementary school, means success in high school, means success post-secondary, whether you're going the 4-year route or whether you go in the 2-year route with a technical occupation. So I think it's all plays together. Education is important from birth to late adulthood, because we always are learning, and there's always new things that happen, and we think we got to be focused on preparing our kids to be successful. What priorities do you see for economic development and creating jobs in the future?
It's got to be workforce development. We have so many people out there that are involved in some type of workforce development, workforce training. We've got the best community colleges in America. You can ask anybody that. So we've got to consolidate and streamline our workforce development so we're getting the most out of it. But we went from paying about 125 million people, $125 million on unemployment, to paying about 56 million. We've saved almost $100 million or more on unemployment payments alone, but we still have about 50,000 people that are not working, and by the way, we got about 50,000 job openings.
As many of you may remember, last year during our Capitol Day event, our morning session featured a guest and a panel that took an in-depth look at a report called Workforce Today, Workforce Tomorrow, a business case for high-quality child care. The U.S. Chamber Foundation and Kellogg partnered to do this report that really stressed two things. It stressed the importance of child care from the employee perspective. In other words, making sure they could find quality child care. They knew their child would be somewhere that would be taking care of them. There'd be an educational environment allowing them to go to work and be productive. It also looked at the importance of tomorrow's workforce from the educational opportunities of quality child care and what it would mean for the workforce of tomorrow. The report really took a broad look over how we as a country were doing from a quality child care perspective and how it related to business and industry. The U.S. Chamber is once again collaborating with Kellogg, and this time they're taking a deeper dive. The dive will really be into specific states and taking a look at how the workforce of today and the workforce of tomorrow and the child care and early education issue impacts each of you in the businesses that you have. I'm happy to announce that Mississippi is one of those 4 states, and really we're working closely with the Chamber. They've also partnered with the Children's Foundation of Mississippi on this project, and it really is designed to do one thing. Look at the positive strides that we've taken over the last few years in early childhood education. It kind of began with building blocks. Many of your companies and many of you were involved in it directly to make sure that building blocks was a starting point for focusing on early childhood education. That led to the Early Childhood Collaborative that now is being funded by the state. So the idea of this report is not to come in and say Mississippi's awful. The idea of this report is to say, look, Mississippi's made strides, but what is it that we can do in order to make sure those strides continue to be taking place and we continue to improve early childhood education in the state? Mississippi's report, along with the reports from the other states, which are Idaho, Iowa, and Pennsylvania, will be released on February 29th in a meeting called the Education Summit, the Economic Impact on States, that will be held at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce office in Washington, D.C. Following the release, MEC, along with the Children's Foundation, will provide more information of what we learned and really what steps can be taken to continue to improve early childhood education here in the state of Mississippi, which ultimately affects the state's workforce participation rate and our economy. We have with us today Dave Dennis of Specialty Contractors. Dave, many of you know, was past chair of the M.B. Swayze Foundation as well as chair of Leadership Mississippi, along with Linda Southward and Cindy Walker of the Children's Foundation of Mississippi, to briefly discuss the role that their organization is going to play in this project, partnering with both us at MEC and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Scott, MEC, and U.S. Chamber. Thank you for shining a light on what is clearly an issue that every one of us in this room know is important. Also, I want to thank Rhea specifically for Kellogg's involvement and your input into it. Your fingerprints are on many things here, so thank you very much. But it is intriguing that the spotlight is being shined on an issue that impacts the workforce training, workforce education, every bit of it. We need the help. We need to help at the earliest age possible, and early childhood education is clearly it. Mississippi being one of the 4 is a big, big deal. And the fact that the U.S. Chamber has looked to the Children's Foundation, which is an emerging organization, it just started in 2019, looking at that group to facilitate it in the state of Mississippi is going to go a long way, I think, toward truly building the foundation that we need in our education system. That's what the hope is. That's what we're going to talk about very briefly. Scott gave us a short window, and we're going to abide by it. So I'll turn it over to Cindy Walker, who is clearly one of the premier experts in a total army of people that work on early childhood education. So Cindy Walker, if you would, please.
Well, good morning. It's very exciting today to be talking about this collaboration with the U.S. Chamber and the Children's Foundation of Mississippi. Many of you will be learning more about that. But I want to refresh your memory. Last year, when you all were here, you heard a lot about the importance of this. We also heard that if we have a strong state's workforce, we probably have high availability of early education programming, which actually kicks off the training of a workforce. However, in this state, where we have 80% of our students who are not able to qualify for service in the military, we have some problems. If we could find a solution that would reduce that number and would also tell us that 70% of them are less likely to be involved in criminal activity, then we would know we were on the right pathway. Unfortunately, in Mississippi, we only spend $6.5 million on that programming. And that sounds like a lot until you look at, say, Alabama, who spends $96 million every year. All of our neighbors are spending higher amounts. And yet, when we look at what we're spending the $6.5 million on, we're only serving 3,000 of the approximate 38,000 4-year-olds in this state. Now, that's okay in one respect, and that is that they are getting one of the highest quality programs, those 3,000, of any in the nation. However, we have 38,000 who are sitting there as a 4-year-old, and all of those need that. So why should that matter to you? Well, I think that it matters to the U.S. Chamber. I think it matters to the Children's Foundation. And I really think in the long run, it matters to you. It's a matter of dollars and cents. When I was sitting with the budget for the state of Mississippi, it was eye-opening to see that 4 of the top expenditures, starting with education, followed by social programming and welfare, and then debt service, followed by corrections. For me, as an educator and a proponent for early education, I believe there's a correlation there that we need not to miss. And if we want to make a difference with that, then we have to begin now to say, what can I do, each one of us? Your workforce is having lots of things come at it. And right now, as business leaders and community leaders, we are hearing that we have a transfer of wealth because many of our citizens are leaving permanently the state of Mississippi. We also hear about drain rain. We hear about the loss of revenues and the increase of government support in this state. And at this point, we have all found through research that one program, early education, can begin to turn all those figures around. I'd like to bring Linda Southward up, who is our director for the Children's Foundation of Mississippi, to share some more with you about this collaboration.
Thank you, Scott, Dave, and Cindy. It is certainly a pleasure to be here representing the Children's Foundation of Mississippi. We truly believe that for Mississippi to reach its potential, we must make sure that our state's children reach their potential. One critical way in doing that is what has already been mentioned, is to equip the workforce of today with quality, accessible, affordable, early childhood education experiences for their children and grandchildren, which in turn significantly increases the probability of developing a stronger workforce for tomorrow. We are incredibly, incredibly grateful to MEC and all of you to participate in the release of the U.S. Chamber Foundation's report. We will be there in D.C. in February, and then we will continue to partner with MEC as those findings are brought back to Mississippi and that we can share these with people across the state. And finally, the Children's Foundation, I heard Secretary of Watson said earlier he was going to be across the state. We may be passing each other doing that because we fully intend to visit each county in Mississippi over the year. We're going to visit each county because we want to keenly listen to and learn from you, the business leaders, the policymakers, individuals within the community who are working for the good of all of our children. And we want to spotlight the many, many successes that we know are out there and that we can share across the state, while also sharing the vision and the work of the Children's Foundation in Mississippi. We'll be creating a blueprint on behalf of Mississippi's children. We would love to bring that and share that at another time, but that's one of the reasons that we are visiting across the state, is to hear the input of individuals anywhere from Tishomingo to Tunica to Pascagoula to Woodville and all places in between. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and to work on behalf of the children of Mississippi. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. It is a privately funded organization, foundationally and privately funded. So if you see it in action, please support it. Scott, thank you. Thank you to Chamber. Thank you, Rhea, Cindy, and Linda. Thank you for your efforts. Please watch early childhood education. It needs to happen, and all of us in here know it. Thank you.
We are the State Chamber of Commerce. We are a private nonprofit. We're funded solely by the support of our members. We don't take any state or federal dollars to do what we do, but we focus on economic development issues, how we improve our workforce, how we improve Mississippi's image, how we do things that really will make a difference in our state in terms of creating jobs.
What do you see as the biggest issues facing businesses in Mississippi going into a new legislative session?
I think, quite frankly, workforce development. I think it continues to be at the forefront, not only in Mississippi, but all across the country. When I talk to my counterparts around the country, everybody's focused on that issue, finding a skilled, trained, quality workforce, getting people to fill the jobs that are available now, and really preparing for making sure we have people to fill the jobs of the future.
This morning you had a session that focused on early childhood. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, early childhood is a big part of, all of this is a big part of workforce. I mean, you got to give them a strong foundation to be successful when they get to school, so that they can really determine success in elementary school, means success in high school, means success post-secondary, whether you're going the 4-year route or whether you go in the 2-year route with a technical occupation. So I think it's all plays together. Education is important from birth to late adulthood, because we always are learning, and there's always new things that happen, and we think we got to be focused on preparing our kids to be successful.
This is the beginning of a new term with a new governor, a new lieutenant governor. Tell us your feeling regarding business being optimistic about what can happen.
Well, we're very optimistic. We think there's a great opportunity ahead of us. I always use the term that there's the difference between opportunity and temptation is you always get a second chance at temptation. So we don't want to miss this opportunity. We want to make sure we take advantage of it, and that we are really working to be putting things in place to help make us extraordinary. So I think that's what is so important to us as we go forward. MEC is a business organization. It's open to anyone. The benefits are we are the network, we are the advocacy agency for businesses all across the state of Mississippi. And for more information, just go to mec.ms. That's mec.ms.